welcome to Tim Connolly Drums. Guys, I've done a lot of videos in the last little while where I've just been talking about negative experiences, whether they be from bandmates, situations, agents, owners, you name it. But today's video is a little bit different. We like to point fingers at other people when they make mistakes, but often we don't point the finger at ourselves when we make mistakes. Well, today, the finger gets pointed at this guy. I'm going to tell you a story about a time when I was a bad bandmate and I failed my band, and I regret this. I regret doing this. I regretted it for years. To this day, I still regret this, but I'm going to tell you the story about how I was the problem in the band. Okay, so it all starts off probably about 17, 18 years ago. I was in a band called Plastic Fantastic, and we were an up-and-coming band on the cover band scene in the GTA, Toronto, Burlington, Oakville, Mississauga, all over Ontario really, but mainly that was the core of the gigs, but we did do a fair bit of traveling as well. Anyways, the band consisted of bass player, I think his name was Peter, but I can't remember exactly, but I do remember the two other people in the band's name clearly. Gayle was on vocals and Johnny was on guitar, and we had backing tracks as well. So I can remember auditioning for this band, and one of the prerequisites to get into this band was you had to be able to play with a click live. And you had to be able to play with backing tracks and maybe have some experience doing that. I was very fortunate that at that time I'd had quite a bit of experience playing with a click live and in the studio. And I was very familiar with using backing tracks, and I mean, backing tracks weren't as popular, 18, 20 years ago, but they definitely were being used by bands. Not like now where backing tracks are huge and so many bands use them. And the bands that I've played in recently, it's all backing tracks. Well, not all, there's still a band of course, but I mean every song has a backing track. With this band, Plastic Fantastic, not every song had a backing track, just some of them. Anyways, I audition, other people audition, and I interview, and right away there was a connection between the three people auditioning, me. And it was an immediate connection where I felt that, and I'm sure you guys can understand, you've got to be able to connect with people, not just on a friendship level, on a musical level. You've got to connect on the way you think, the way that you approach life even has to be similar to really connect in a band. It's very difficult for bands to function and survive when you're all from different places and different mindsets. I think that's the word I'm looking for, is mindset. So I discovered very quickly, and they felt the same way, I found out later, that we're all in the same mindset. We wanted to play, we wanted to have fun, and we were all on a professional level, all educated people in music, and the band was in its infancy, but we wanted to grow. That was our plan. So I get the job. Awesome. So we start, playing, and we start building and building and building. Now, if you check out one of my other videos where I talked about the woman that confused me with a different drummer and thought I was a drug dealer, if you go and check out that video, I'll put a link in the description. In that video, I talked about playing in a dive bar. Well, that particular dive bar and that video, the band was Plastic Fantastic. The band I'm going to talk about today. And as I said in my earlier intro, people like to point the fingers at everybody else, but often we don't take responsibility for our own actions. Well, in this video today, I am going to take responsibility for my bad actions, and I was the problem. I'm going to tell you the 3 people in this band were awesome people. No drama, fun to be around, great musicians, enjoyable atmosphere. Like, you know, when you were around Johnny and Gayle particularly, you couldn't help but be in a good mood. That's the kind of people I'm talking about. And those are the kind of people generally that I like to play with. It's difficult to play with moody, difficult, diva type musicians. There was no ego, and the band was great. The ego wasn't needed because the band was good. And nobody had to, you know, take a spotlight. Everybody shone equally. There was nobody that really was, you know, really stood out. Everybody had their moment, and it was this, I don't know, it was like a hybrid of mental and musical, if you can understand what I mean by that. We just connected. Johnny was so entertaining, such a great guitar player, so much fun, audience pleaser. Every time we played, Gayle and Johnny out front, typical of a guitar player and vocalist, they ruled the stage, and they were excellent performers, really good. Now, the bass player and myself, more relaxed, typical. Rhythm section is usually more laid back. I'm more concerned about trying to lay down the time and play with this click, and you know, the bass player and I were very tight and very focused. Whereas Johnny and Gayle, they were up front, they were gregarious, they were more fun. I'm going to be totally honest. I was just trying to lay down the grooves and have fun in my own way, but they were the outward people, the 2 front people. Anyways, the band is developing, we're doing good, everything is moving along well. We do a house party, we do weddings, we do bars, corporate. We were expanding into many, many different varieties of gigs, and as a result we got ourselves hooked up with some good agents, and we started to soar in the scene of cover bands, you know. Anyways, we, like I said, we were doing good gigs, and then we got that dive bar gig. And if, like I said, if you check out my other video where I talk about that woman confusing me with a different drummer and looking for drugs, and she wouldn't leave me alone, and it was an awful gig for me because I am not a drug dealer, I'm not a drug user, I don't drink, nothing. I'm not that kind of musician. I've always been the sober musician. So I'll put a link, like I said, and you can check that video out. But that video put me into that gig put me into a bad place mentally. Because we had done these good gigs. I remember saying to Gayle, I called her up because I was really pissed off about this dive bar gig in Toronto. And I called Gayle up and I said, Gayle, like, why would the agent give that gig to you after we just did, I think, 3 or 4 nights in Blue Mountain in Collingwood, Ontario, which was a really great gig. We got accommodations taken care of, food taken care of, we got paid. You know, our friends and families came up and watched the show. It was fantastic that weekend of shows. Then the next weekend, we're in this dive bar. I just didn't understand, and I was really ticked off. How do we go from such a great gig to such a terrible gig? And that gig, right when I got there, the stage was just covered in filth. They never cleaned the place up. It was dirty. The people in the bar were low-grade people. And like I said, lady gets confused with me thinking I'm her drug dealer or a drug dealer, whatever. So that whole gig went downhill quick. And as a result, it put me in a really negative place. So my action, which was wrong, was to say to Johnny and Gayle, let's protest the next gig that we are given by the agent. Now, please keep in mind, at this time, you know, 17, 18, 19 years ago, I can't remember the exact time, I had never run a band. I'd never been a band leader. I was always a sideman, a sub, or a hired guy. So I had never actually done any booking, so I did not understand. I thought I knew, but I didn't know shit about booking gigs. Fast forward to the, 10, 15 years, whatever, I was a band leader, and it was especially when I was a band leader that I looked back on this situation and I thought, man, I was wrong. I was the problem. None of the guys in my band were the problem. The agent wasn't even the problem. I was the problem. I don't know exactly, like I said, why I was in this dark place, but I went into a dark hole and I refused to play. And I wanted them to join me in this dark place by saying, let's protest the next gig or even the next set of gigs. And I didn't realize that really bands don't have that much power. Even though we were rising, we weren't the top of the heap. Maybe at the top of the heap, you've got some power, but when you're still rising, you're still developing, and we weren't at the top of the heap in terms of the cover band scene. We're definitely above the middle and rising still, but we're not the top band. We're, at the time, I think there was a band called the Orangemen, and there was a few other bands. I can't remember all their names that were at the top of the cover band heap. So let's protest. Well, they disagree with me and say, no, we got to do the show. And so, anyways, a couple days pass, and I'm brewing on this, and lo and behold, we get another gig, of course. And I refuse to do it. And they try to talk to me. Johnny tries to talk to me, let's just do this gig, and then we'll talk to the agent, and we'll see what's happening, and let's just do this gig. And I was like, no, we have to protest. We have to say, no, you're not going to give us these crappy gigs. We're not going to take it anymore. Because in my mind, he's giving us all these good gigs. And then why all of a sudden did he throw this dive bar gig into us? It was like punishment or something. I didn't understand. And I thought the only way that we're going to show this agent is with this protest. We refuse to play. Foolishly thinking that we actually had some power. So I don't do the gig. They do the gig, and I got a sub, and they got a sub. It was kind of like a mutual thing they agreed upon, and I think it was Dave Langeth from Nelly Furtado that actually subbed in for me on that particular gig. And, the gig was fine. Dave's a great player, world-class player, and everything went well, and they were happy and everything. But, of course, Dave is a super busy guy. He wasn't going to be their drummer. He was just subbing in, which is what we do all the time in the industry. We hire out subs. So another gig comes up. Once again, I don't know what the hell I was thinking. Let's protest it. Again, I throw this whole protest thing out. Once again, I get back to me, no, let's not. Let's do the gig, and we're going to work this out. I wouldn't have anything of it. So then another drummer subs in from the band Glass Tiger, another famous Canadian artist. And he subs in, and apparently, from what I was told, he did not play well. Nothing against this particular drummer, but he showed up drunk, and he did not play well, and he was struggling with the click because of being drunk, and he got drunker as the show went on. By the time the third set rolled around, he was literally falling off his drum stool, according to Gayle and Johnny, as I remember it. So they were really pissed off at me for getting this guy to come in and the gig not going well, and there was a really bad vibe. So now they're not only pissed off at me for protesting, not doing the gig, refusing to do the gig, but also hiring someone that came in and did not do a good job, which I was totally confused about because he's a great drummer and he plays in a fairly famous Canadian band, and I thought he would be fine. But anyways, it didn't work out. So now we're in dispute, and I did something that I sincerely regret, and I want to apologize to the bass player, Gayle, and Johnny, and that is I quit. I abandoned it while it was still developing and while the band was growing and doing well, and that was a huge mistake because the band was really great. I remember my wife telling me, you're going to regret this, don't quit. the band is really good. People love the band. And we were developing a following. People were coming out specifically to see us. And then I get this bee in my bonnet, and I decide that no, if they're gonna give us crappy gigs, I refuse to play these gigs. And that whole crackhead woman just got in my head, plus the filth in the venue. I just couldn't overcome it. It took me a long time to overcome that one gig. And it was like, now when I look back, get over it, dude. Some gigs are gonna be crappy, some gigs are gonna be good. Myself now, I wish I could have talked to myself then, because I've matured more as a musician since then. But I made a critical error in quitting that band. And I know I disappointed them. They both, actually all of them, all three of them tried to talk me into not quitting. They called me and don't do it, and explaining to me the band is on the rise and the agents, there's not just the one agent, we have other agents. Plus we have further agents interested in us, including casino agents and blah, blah, blah. Don't quit the band. They tried to talk me out of it. I stupidly wouldn't listen to them and I quit. And to this day, I know that was a mistake. I wish I hadn't quit because I really regretted it. Now the band fell apart. Unfortunately, everybody went off on their separate ways. The band did not carry on, which really, as I found out later, that upset me too, because not only did I quit because of my little protest or my little hissy fit or whatever you want to call it, but I ruined a really good vibe for those guys. I don't know why they completely quit. I think they carried on for a little bit with sub drummers. They were hiring sub drummers, but I don't think they actually hired a permanent guy. I'm not exactly sure why. Now, since then, I have spoken to Gayle and we have refriended. I never played another gig with her again, but we refriended. And Gayle, if you're watching this, if you get a chance to see me, I miss you, girl. You were awesome. We had so much fun together. And like I said, I was the problem. Never you, never Johnny, never the bass player. It was always me. And I humbly regret that, and I apologize. I sincerely apologize to all three of you guys. Johnny, what a great frontman you were, man. I can remember playing a gig with you one time and you introduced Madonna with her real name and I got confused. But in hindsight, I laugh about that now because it wasn't until later on in the gig that I realized, oh, that's Madonna's real name. And I thought you had given them some fake name that you just made up. I didn't realize it was Madonna's real name. Anyways, we all make mistakes. We try to learn from our mistakes. I never got myself into a situation where my ego got the best of me like I did back then. Like I said, moving forward as a band leader, and I led bands for 10 years, it's a difficult task booking gigs, dealing with agents, dealing with band members, dealing with club owners, dealing with people that are advertising for your event, dealing with lighting guys, dealing with sound guys. When you're the boss, everybody comes to you when there's a problem. I should have went to them with a completely different attitude. Instead of, let's protest and I quit and I'm not playing this gig, and this childish approach that I used, I should have said, hey, what can we do to resolve this? Let's talk to the agent. Let's have a meeting. Let's see if what we can do moving forward, and just kept playing and sucked it up. That's what I should have done. But hindsight is 20/20. And I did learn from that because I never pulled that trick again, especially obviously as a band leader. I had people quit on me. I fired people too. It's not easy being a band leader. So Johnny and Gayle, I really respect what you guys did, what you brought to the table. And like I said, I apologize for me being the problem in the band. Anyways, guys, that's my story where I'm pointing the fingers at me. Not every single story is the other guy making the mistakes. Sometimes you got to look to yourself and tell the truth. So I decided to give you guys this story. Please don't be too hard on me in the comments. I have since mended my ways. Thanks very much for watching. Thanks for all the comments I've been getting. And please check out some of my other videos. People are commenting saying they want to see me play. And I will be doing some playing very soon, but I'm still dealing with this hand problem. I'm hoping that I don't have to have another hand surgery. I'm going to see a hand specialist, a different hand specialist on Monday. But I was in the hospital yesterday with my hand situation, and I'm hoping to get this thing dealt with. And as soon as I get it dealt with, get back to be doing some playing. Anyways, thanks a lot for watching. And as always, keep drumming. See ya.